Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Run in the Paint recap. I'm Miles, going solo here today on Thursday, April 16th. And oh my goodness, the NBA play-in tournament continues to be on absolute fire. We had two more incredible games that came down to the final minutes, and we had a stunning result here in the most recent game. Before we get into that one, want to remind you guys to leave a like if you guys enjoyed the video. Subscribe for NBA postseason content coming out basically every day here on the channel. We have the recaps every single day and then the full podcast coming out on Tuesday and Fridays. But just make sure you stay tuned for all the fun, because if these first two nights of the postseason have any indication of what's to come, this is certainly going to be one of the places that you'll want to be for your postseason coverage. This is just unbelievable. This was absolutely unbelievable. Let's start off by talking about this Western Conference 9-10 game between the Golden State Warriors and the LA Clippers. And this was a game that going in, not a whole lot of people had faith in the Golden State Warriors to get it done. No momentum the entire season. Injury riddled the entire way for their best players. Come in against a Clippers team that turned around their season in the second half of the year. But in the end, it is the Warriors that end up pulling off the comeback victory, winning 126-121. They eliminate the Clippers. The Clippers are now, well, not in the lottery because they give up their first-round pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But the Warriors live to fight another day. They'll play again on Friday night against the Phoenix Suns on the road for a chance to advance into the playoffs. But man, there is so much to talk about with this game, but I think we just have to talk about the fourth quarter comeback by the Warriors. They trailed by 13 early in the fourth quarter. Clippers were forcing turnovers, and they looked great offensively. They were up, I believe, 98-85, but then the Warrior veterans turned it around, and of course, it was led by Mr. number 30, Steph Curry. 35 points, 7 made threes, got off to a very slow start. Started off 1 for 5 from the field. Didn't have a crazy first half, but the shot making and the gravity in the fourth quarter was absolutely spectacular. This is a guy that's only been back for like a couple of weeks after missing 2 months with injury, and he just comes back and is able to do this against a talented Clippers defensive team. It makes you appreciate what you see from this guy, because it really is incredible that we still get these unbelievable performances where he's knocking down these difficult step back threes. This, again, his off-ball gravity is off the charts, and he's doing it so late into his career. I know, talking about it in the preview of this game in the last couple of days with the guys, we're talking about how, man, with the Warriors, you gotta wonder if for these veteran guys, if they're going to have an extra gear in them, knowing that, man, this, you never know when these types of opportunities are going to come up again, right? For guys like Steph Curry and Draymond Green in particular, and even an Al Horford, who we'll get to as well. And we'll get to Draymond, of course, for his incredible game. But I mean, just it makes you appreciate what you have with Steph Curry, and now they have another chance to do it again, try to get into the playoffs as the 8th seed. Going into this set of games here, I know a lot of people, including myself, weren't giving the Warriors much of a chance here in this game, or in fact to win 2 games in this play-in tournament. But with this sort of win, certainly can give them momentum going up against a Phoenix Suns team coming up on Friday that just had a tough loss to Portland on Tuesday night. But Steph Curry had a great game, but this was a team victory for Golden State. Guy Santos had 20 points for them. He started off playing really well. He's had a very good season for the Warriors after, being converted to a standard NBA deal. But the guys that you have to shout out in this game, Kristaps Porzingis, who also had 20 points, had a couple of huge putback dunks on the offensive end, some big threes in transition, had a key and one in the fourth quarter. He was huge in his 27.5 minutes. Al Horford making 4 threes in the fourth quarter of this game to lead the Warriors back and to hype up the Intuit Dome crowd. The Intuit Dome, the home of the Clippers, was electric the entire game for really both sides, because, I mean, LA, Golden State, it's been a California rivalry for, a number of years here, over a decade, and both teams were showing out as far as both fan bases go. And Al Horford knocking down those threes really got the crowd into it on the Warriors side of things and allowed them to really go ahead and pull away and get this game back into their advantage here, because Horford turned this game from being down double figures to giving them the lead, and Steph Curry finished it off with his offense. But Draymond Green somehow does it again in a season where Draymond Green, I bet it's been really frustrating for him at this stage of his career, wants to compete, wants to win, at this point of his career now, age 35. But this year has just been really uneven for him, even with all the injuries. There was a long time here this season where, Draymond Green's never been a big stats guy. His impact was always way above the box score. But it's worked for them throughout their dynasty. But this year in particularly was one of the first years where, Draymond Green isn't really having the impact that he's had in previous years. But my goodness, he turned back the clock defensively today. Once again, it's a game where you look at the box score and you see 7 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists. Okay, good all-around numbers, but nothing huge. A triple single, for Draymond Green. But his defense on Kawhi Leonard, who's been one of the hottest players in the entire NBA, a career year for this first ballot Hall of Famer, 2-time Finals MVP, and Draymond held him basically useless in the fourth quarter of this game. Kawhi Leonard scored 21 points in this game, and 20 points. This is a guy that, everyone has been talking about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 20-point streak this season and how he broke Wilt Chamberlain. But the guy that's second on that list currently in the league is Kawhi. This game was his 55th consecutive game scoring 20-plus points, and he didn't get it until the final play of the game, and he just couldn't even get comfortable in the fourth quarter because of Draymond Green's defense. So much so that Kawhi Leonard, the best player on the floor going into this game, and one of the best players in the league for the second half of the season, couldn't get open or dribble the ball when they were taking it out of bounds or when they needed a basket. Awesome performance by Draymond Green on the defensive end. And these are the games that remind you why Draymond Green is always so valuable for that Warriors team. He was absolutely awesome in this game for the Warriors and holding Kawhi Leonard basically useless after halftime. For the Clippers, they got some good performances from, the other guys as well, right? Kawhi didn't have the ball in his hands that much, so other guys had to, take care of the scoring and playmaking. And Darius Garland had a good offensive game, 21 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds. He had a stretch in the fourth quarter where he had an and one, a step back three. He was getting to the rim, it seemed like, at ease, for the Clippers. And he had a terrific game, but ended up fouling out on the defensive end. He had 5 fouls for basically the whole fourth quarter until that final minute there. And then off the bench, Benedict Mathurin had a big game, 23 points in 30 minutes off the bench. I'll tell you what, Benedict Mathurin, I did not think that the Clippers were going to lose this game when Benedict Mathurin made 5 of 6 3-pointers. And this is a guy that shot 21% from 3 since being traded to the Clippers. He's been absolutely brutal from 3 until this game. He 5 for 6 from 3, 23 points, was great on both ends of the floor. But it comes in a loss here because the Warriors, just with their experience, with their veteran leadership, and Steph Curry and Draymond Green leading the way to be like, all right, we're not allowing this to end tonight. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough season. We haven't been able to get much momentum, much rhythm at all this season. We're not going to let it end tonight. We're going to give ourselves another shot here to try to get into the playoffs. And this is just a team win. It's a program win. It's a dynasty win for this dynasty franchise. And it's just a special victory for the Golden State Warriors and a heartbreaking one for the Clippers, where, again, they're up by 13, early in the fourth quarter. Looks like they're going to run away with this game. But Steph Curry comes back here and lights them up, and the Clippers just didn't get the answers, when they really needed it. I mean, they got good performances across the board, like I said, with Garland, Mathurin. Lopez had 17 points and 5 rebounds. He had some nice, little floaters in the paint. Derek Jones, 13. Chris Dunn had 10 assists in this game. John Collins, 11 and 9 off the bench. If you look at this performance here for the Clippers, I mean, there's not a whole lot of times where they're going to lose this game, but it was a game where they didn't get that superstar performance from their superstar in Kawhi Leonard, and the Warriors did. And at the end of the day, that's what mattered. That was the difference at the end. They got an all-time performance from Steph Curry. They got a terrific performance from Draymond on the defensive end. And the Clippers guys just, although they had good games, they just couldn't match that. And when the Warriors got going, the crowd was on their side, even though it was a Clipper home game. Huge win for the Golden State Warriors, winning 126-121 against the Clippers. There you see the official numbers there. Just absolutely incredible that the Warriors got this done. But let's talk a little bit about the LA Clippers, because their season is now incredibly over here after losing in this game. And what a year it was for the Clippers. Started off with what a lot of people would call the retirement home, a team that I had a lot of high hopes for this season, coming off of last year where they were such a big success story, tied for third place in the West, 50 wins, took the Denver Nuggets to 7 games, and then they bring in these talented players on paper. They lose Norman Powell, but they bring in Bradley Beal. They didn't really have a power forward there that was consistent. They get John Collins, Chris Paul to be their backup point guard, Brook Lopez to be a backup center, to Ivica Zubac to join Kawhi Leonard and James Harden, and already having Chris Dunn and Derrick Jones Jr. But it completely goes south to start the season, 6-21, so bad that they had to send Chris Paul home, their franchise GOAT home, and put them as one of the front runners for the Run on the Paint podcast Garbage Fire Franchise Award. But off the backs of Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Ivica Zubac, they had completely turned it around, right? And they were back in this picture to try and make a run at the playoffs in the postseason by the trade deadline, by the All-Star break. But then James Harden, like he has in, different several stops past here, just wasn't able to get what he wanted from a contractual situation. So he and the Clippers explored a trade, and the Clippers completely switch up their team and their identity at the deadline, trading James Harden to Cleveland, bringing in Darius Garland, and then trading Zubac to the Pacers for Benedict Mathurin. And Garland and Mathurin were two big pieces for the Clippers the second half of the year. And of course, Kawhi was unbelievable. They were able to get some good performances from their young guys as well. When you look at what Kobe Sanders, Jordan Miller did, Yannick Conan Niederhauser during the second half of the season, solid all around years from Chris Dunn, Derrick Jones Jr. Still, Chris Dunn, Brook Lopez was good. Bradley Beal didn't really work out at all with the injury early on, but just a wild season. It's kind of hard to encapsulate what the Clippers were able to do this year because they had so many different iterations of this team throughout the year. But it does have to go down as a disappointment, with the expectations, with the roster they had coming into the season. I had high expectations for them. I thought they could be a low-key finals team. And I know I'm not expert or anything, but I'm definitely not the only person that thought this could be a special team. And they end up losing in the play-in, albeit they had a historic turnaround, becoming the first team ever to go from being 15 games below 500 to finishing the season above 500. Major accomplishment. But for the expectations coming in and getting a career year from Kawhi Leonard, the fact that it ends in the first leg of the play-in is a disappointment. So this sets up a very interesting offseason for the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, unfortunately for them, they do not have their own first-round pick, of course, from the Paul George, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander trade from now 7 years ago. So Oklahoma City is going to get the Clippers lottery pick, and that's going to be something to watch because each of the last 2 years, we've seen a team get eliminated in the 9-10 play-in game and then win the draft lottery, with Dallas last year and Atlanta in 2024. Will it happen for the Clippers or for the Thunder, who are the championship favorites again this season? That'd be crazy. But something that the Clippers do have to look forward to on draft lottery night is the first-round pick that they acquired with Benedict Mathurin from the Indiana Pacers in the Ivica Zubac trade, because it was a very intriguing, creative protection on the draft pick. The pick is top 4 protected to the Pacers. 5 through 10 is the Clippers. And then if it's, below 10, which it won't be because the Pacers were one of the worst teams in the league this year, then it was going to go to the Pacers. So pretty much if it's 1 through 4, it goes to the Pacers. 5 through 9, maybe, then it goes to LA. So that's where the Clippers, it's an intriguing offseason perspective here because they could land a top 5 pick. 5, 6, 7, 8 in a loaded draft class, and that could be huge for this Clippers team going forward. Or the Pacers end up getting a top 4 pick and their overall tank with all their injuries. It's a success for that team. But for the Clippers, they have a lot of other decisions to make besides just, the lottery, on the draft lottery. Kawhi Leonard, of course, being the biggest one. Again, has the best counting stat season of his career at age 34 in year 15 in the NBA. He averaged 28.6 rebounds, 3 assists per game on incredible efficiency, nearly a 50-40-90 season, playing in 65 games, the most healthy Kawhi has been in a long time for that Clippers team. But he is on the final year of his contract next year, $50 million. And the Clippers made moves at the trade deadline to go younger, to bring in Darius Garland, to bring in Benedict Mathurin. They have a ton of cap space going into next summer in 2027. And Kawhi at age 34 coming off of this year, he wants to compete for championships at this point of his career. Or maybe he just wants to stay in LA and he's cool with staying with the Clippers. But it feels like Kawhi Leonard, he is 100% still capable of going to a championship contending team and being an elite player on both ends of the floor. Obviously, some things have diminished now that he is at age 34, but he is still a phenomenal player in the NBA. So I guess, what Kawhi and the Clippers are going to have to decide here is, do they want to move forward with Kawhi Leonard? Do they want to give him an extension this offseason that would lock up this 35, 36, 37-year-old player onto their team? It's going to be similar conversations like the Clippers had with James Harden that eventually ended up getting him traded to the Cavs. So that will be the number one thing to watch for, is if Kawhi Leonard will be on the move this season because he just doesn't fit the Clippers timeline going forward here. If that is a possibility, then, it's going to be interesting to see where he could end up here. The number one team that'll immediately pop up in most people's minds is the Miami Heat. They just got eliminated on Tuesday night in similar heartbreaking fashion. And, they're always in the market for a star player. But there are plenty of playoff teams here, that could, in theory, use Kawhi's services here if the season doesn't end up going as expected here in the playoffs. I think of a situation like last year with the Houston Rockets when they were the 2 seed last year, losing the first round, wanted to get an experience with that young team as a top seed in the conference. And then they go and make the trade for Kevin Durant. Now, they didn't have to go all in for that trade, but they bring in Kevin Durant to bring some veteran scoring that they needed to that team. A team that could be in play for that, and a team that I've been interested in seeing make a play for Kawhi, has been the Detroit Pistons, who were a 60-win team this season, top seed in the Eastern Conference, but a team that not a whole lot of people outside of Detroit, I would think, have them making it to the NBA Finals, making it out of the East. A lot of people say maybe they won't get out of the second round. If that's the case, then maybe Kawhi Leonard is someone that they could look to trade for, even though they are a young team. That, Cade Cunningham's an elite player. I mean, they're the top seed in the Eastern Conference. So that could be something to watch for. I'm sure other teams would be available, later down the line, either depending on, where they finish in this year's postseason landscape. Like Minnesota could be intriguing. Anthony Edwards and Kawhi Leonard together. If Phoenix wanted to go that route again, I don't think they would. But there are just some interesting places that could end up with the Clippers. Benedict Mathurin's a restricted free agent, so the Clippers are going to have to bring him back, as I'm sure he'll get offers from other places after, having a very good season, an experienced player playing for the NBA Finals Pacers team last year and being a pivotal player for them in certain games. And this year, a consistent 17, 18-point scorer, as a starter for the Pacers and then off the bench for the Clippers, and giving them similar production. Now, the thing to watch for with him is if the 3-point regression when he got to the Clippers is negative or something that will continue throughout, because he shot 37% from 3 the first half of the season with the Pacers, then 21% with the Clippers. Seems like something's got to end up in that middle near that, probably closer to the 34% range where he's been at for most of his career. But either way, I think the Clippers are in a decent position going forward with that pick. They have Darius Garland, who was great for the Clippers after the trade, seeing that he was healthy for that whole spurt of the second half of the season. Definitely impressive stuff that he did for the Clippers, but unfortunately for them and their fans, they're out in the first round of the play-in tournament, and the Golden State Warriors advance with another chance here. Friday night, they're going to go to Phoenix to try to get their way into the playoffs. The Suns coming off of that heartbreaking loss to Portland on Tuesday night. That game will be Friday, 10 p.m. on Prime Video. Warriors at Suns for the right to get the 8th seed to take on Oklahoma City in the first round of the playoffs. That was an incredible game. Warriors and Clippers. The Heat Hornets game was a hard one to top from Tuesday night, but this one was pretty good as well with the shot making and the bigger name players in this one. So let me know down below if you think this Warriors Clippers game was the game of the play-in tournament so far, or if the Heat Hornets one was a little bit better. Let's talk about the first game now here today, the Eastern Conference 7-8 matchup between the Orlando Magic and the Philadelphia 76ers. And this was an old school postseason game with a whole lot of physicality, a lot of players that seemed like didn't really like each other on the floor. They were going at it, but in the end, it is the 76ers that defeat the Magic 109-97 to get back into the playoffs after a little hiatus last year to take on the Boston Celtics, the 2 seed in the first round. Boston and Philly meeting up once again in the playoffs. That'll be a lot of fun. Again, on Friday, we'll have the full podcast with all 4 of us, hopefully here to preview and predict those series, there. But as far as this game, again, this was just a hard-fought game between these two teams. We weren't sure coming in how the Magic were going to look in this game after just such a disappointing year it's been for them, the defensive struggles, and coming off of that horrible loss to Boston's third stringers on the final day of the regular season, which put them in this position to be on the road. But I thought they did a pretty good job early in this game of bringing the energy, bringing that physicality, and bringing that toughness. And, they looked pretty good. But the Sixers got terrific performances across the board from their players. And it was led by Tyrese Maxey. Got to talk about Maxey, who has had a great year for the Sixers this season. Had 31 points and 6 assists in this game. Wasn't the most efficient, 11 of 25, 3 for 9 from downtown. But I just give him so much credit for being someone who is so fast, one of the fastest players in the NBA, and plays the most minutes in the league as well. Averaged 38 minutes a game during the regular season, which I didn't realize was the most for a player in 10 years, which is very impressive. But if I'm not mistaken, I can go and check right here, but I want to say Maxey ended up playing the entire second half for the Sixers. He played all but a minute and 12 seconds, so he nearly played the entire second half for the 76ers, and he led his team very, very well. I mean, he was great in this game, attacking the basket with his floaters, his layups, the step-back threes, and the mid-rangers. But he got some much-needed help from that talented Sixers team who did not have Joel Embiid in this game. They got 19 points from Kelly Oubre, who had a big first quarter knocking down 3 threes, finished with 5, and had some clutch ones in the fourth quarter. The rookie, VJ Edgecombe, with 19 points and 11 rebounds. Still had some, rookie mistakes, throughout this game, but overall, I thought he looked really good out there for his first postseason game. Talked about how there wasn't really going to be anyone on the Magic that could match him athletically, and you could see that in this game with the different, moves he was making. And 11 defensive rebounds for your shooting guard, is pretty good, and definitely something that was needed in this game, where the Sixers were able to match the Magic essentially on the glass when the Sixers are a much smaller team, and Edgecombe was a huge part of that. Paul George, had a good game in this one, 16, 5, and 5. Wasn't the most efficient, but I thought he had a very good impact on the game on both ends. Had a couple of steals, was making his teammates better, and was getting good, shots here. This is the one guy here for really either team that has been in so many of these situations, throughout his, terrific career. And he was fantastic in this one. And then also got to give credit to the big guys for the Sixers. Adem Bona had 3 blocks in this game as the starter in limited minutes. He had, it really ignited the Sixers crowd there, having the back-to-back blocks in the third quarter. But Andre Drummond for the 76ers had an awesome game off the bench. Double-double, 14 points, 10 rebounds, 3 steals, 3 blocks, and 2 3-pointers. Yes, Andre Drummond, 2 for 3 from downtown, including the dagger to seal the deal in the final minute of the game. Now, Andre Drummond has been shooting a decent amount of threes this year, and he has been making them. But what he was doing at both ends of the floor, I was really impressed with for a guy that started out as someone that probably wasn't the most mature player on the offensive end, was looking to get his own numbers. Was seen to be pouting on the bench at different times. As someone who had Andre Drummond on his favorite team when he was on my Cleveland Cavaliers for a little bit there, he was one of my least favorite players to watch because it felt like he didn't really know his role. But when you have a situation like this where he's able to showcase, his role, he played amazing. This is the first real meaningful game he's played in a pretty long time here, playing for the Bulls the last couple of years. And then last year signing back with the Sixers, but then missing the playoffs with all their injuries. This was a chance for Drummond to show, that he can be great as a role player, and he was with the block shots that he had, the rebounds, had a couple nice passes. Some of them didn't lead to assists. One of them did, a great backdoor pass to VJ Edgecombe in the final minute when the Sixers needed a basket. And, just being a fluent offensive player, he's turned into a very smart offensive player. And he was great in this game and much needed for the Sixers to have that type of performance from one of their big guys with Embiid out. And it was able to, withstand a Magic team that got, solid games on the rebounding edge from Wendell Carter and Goga Batadze on the offensive glass. The Sixers just ended up making the plays down the stretch in this one with Tyrese Maxey, with Andre Drummond, VJ Edgecombe, Oubre, Paul George. They all made plays down the stretch. Quentin Grimes was good off the bench as well. Dominic Barlow, like everyone who played for them had a good impact on the game. And that's exactly what they needed against a Magic team that I'd say only Desmond Bane had a really good game. Desmond Bane was amazing. He had 34 points, 10 of 16 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3, kept getting to the free throw line at will, was 10 for 11 at the line. And, he was the player on the Magic that has the most postseason experience from his time with the Memphis Grizzlies. But, even like this Magic team has been, in playoffs, the last 2 seasons against Cleveland and then Boston, where they've been pretty competitive, in both of those series. But man, in this game, you just hope for better performances, from all their other guys, honestly. Like Desmond Bane, again, great. I feel like at most times this year, he has been their best player. Because you look at a guy that should be their best player, Paolo Banchero, who I talked about, a couple pods ago, how he needed to have a big game as a leader, both on and off the floor. And I thought his leadership was pretty good, but, he just had another stinker of a game here. 18, 5, and 4, but 6 turnovers, 7 for 22 from the field, 0 for 5 from downtown. If I'm not mistaken, I'm going to go back to the Sunday game against Boston. That's unbelievable. The exact same shooting percentages from the field and from 3, and also had 6 turnovers again. Back-to-back games where their star player and their leader puts up a stinker. Puts up a stinker in this game. Franz Wagner was pretty quiet as well. He's been dealing with injury. He just came back. He tweaked his knee up in the final minute, got run into by his teammate Wendell Carter Jr. Didn't see him coming back down the floor, knee contact. But Paolo was not silent, but I don't think he had a good game. Franz, I don't think, had a good game. And Jalen Suggs in 37 minutes goes 1 for 9 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3. Just Orlando going 7 for 27 from 3. And Bane again was 4 for 6, meaning that they went 3 for 21 from downtown if it wasn't Desmond Bane shooting. Just not good enough. Not good enough in this situation. And again, I love the energy and the physicality that they brought, because there were a lot of scuffles and technical fouls in this game that were handed out. I mean, Oubre and Paolo got into it. Bona and Carter got into it. Bane and Suggs and Edgecombe were getting into it with those guys. Jamal Cain for the Magic. Like, everyone was getting into it, in this game. And it was fun to watch here, an old school postseason game. But overall for the Magic, let's say Desmond Bane, 34 points, you could say he was the best player on the floor, being the most efficient, leading the game in scoring. You could say he was the best player on the floor, right? But then you look at who was the next best performance in this game. Maxey with 31, Edgecombe 19 and 11, Oubre 19, Paul George 16, Drummond 14 and 10. I'd argue that all those guys had better impacts than on this game than anyone else on Orlando. Like Anthony Black was good off the bench, 13, 6, and 3, but overall, like, he missed some key free throws down the stretch. Like, I feel like across the board, the Sixers just got the performances that they needed in this situation, and the Magic did not. Which is tough for them. Because it's another disheartening loss, and a chance where they could have gotten the 7th seed to clinch the playoffs. But instead now they have to try to win another game. Now they're going to go back home on Friday, playing up against a red-hot Charlotte Hornets team that just got that incredible overtime victory on Tuesday against the Miami Heat. So the Charlotte Hornets, the Buzz City Killers, are going to try to send both of the Florida teams to Cancun here. But I'm excited to see how the Magic play in that game against a red-hot Hornets team that can provide similar things to what the Sixers team provided. But we'll get into that preview and breakdown on the full podcast here. Let me see if I have anything else in my notes from these games. I really don't think so. I mean, I just was super impressed by what Philadelphia was able to do down the stretch with their key players. And this just makes it so interesting for them going into their first round against Boston now, because, Boston is going to be heavily favored in the series because of just the talent that they have and the overall history of that matchup over the Joel Embiid era for the Sixers and the Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown era for Boston. But the Sixers getting these types of performances from everyone throughout their team has to give a little bit of hope, right? Because it's kind of similar to what we've seen with Boston through this season, where, they, without Jason Tatum early on, they relied on a lot of their role players to play and get experience and make some big plays. And now those guys can be trusted in playoff scenarios. For the Sixers, they were able to get that with these players. These veterans, of course, what you're going to get from them, but seeing what VJ Edgecombe can do for a full season as the starting 2 guard, what a Den Bona can do as a starting center, filling in for an MVP and being a good shot blocker. Even Dominic Barlow, who was the starting 4-man for most of the season. Like, this is a great opportunity for the Sixers to show what they can do. And now their goal for the Boston series is going to be kind of similar to what the Lakers are going to do with the Houston Rockets, even though that one's obviously on more steroids because it's their 2 leading scorers for the Lakers. But just try to draw out the Celtics as long as you can. And hopefully you can get that, the former MVP monster Joel Embiid back on the floor here to try to give them a slim chance to beat Boston. Because if they're fully healthy, there is a chance Philly could pull off the upset. But I think they do need to be fully healthy. But just games like tonight where everyone performs well, you can see the vision of what they can do when all their other guys get it going. But that's it. 2 more incredible play-in tournament games here on Wednesday night, with the Sixers defeating the Magic in the 7-8 game in the Eastern Conference, and the stunner, the Warriors, upsetting the Clippers with that fourth quarter comeback in the fourth quarter to eliminate the Clippers and give themselves another chance here. So no games here tonight. On Thursday night, we get a little bit of a break here, but on Friday night, it's right back to play-in tournament action to determine the final seed in each conference. First at 7:30 on Prime Video, it's the Charlotte Hornets visiting the Orlando Magic for the right to play the Detroit Pistons in the first round as in that 1-8 matchup. And then right after that at 10 p.m. on Prime, it's Golden State and Phoenix, the 10-7 matchup in the 9-8 game. With the winner of that game looking to play Oklahoma City. Excited to see how both those teams come out in that game, with Phoenix coming off of that tough loss to the Portland Trailblazers. But that is it for me. Make sure you stay tuned for tomorrow at this same time here, where we will have the full podcast with our full round 1 series previews and predictions. It's going to be a lot of fun. The postseason is just getting underway, and I'm so happy that you guys were able to be on the ride here with me for this recap. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like. Once again, subscribe for more NBA postseason content. Hope they have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one.